July 2024, Bangladesh was in turmoil. After 16 years of Sheikh Hasina's rule, millions of Bangladeshis took to the streets in a historic mass uprising. What began as a student movement soon turned into a nationwide revolt against a regime widely seen as brutal, corrupt, and illegitimate.
They blame the government for a violent crackdown on dissent, which left at least 200 people dead.
Under the leadership of student groups, millions of citizens demanded change. Eventually, Sheikh Hasina's government was overthrown and she fled the country.
Bangladesh Prime Minister has resigned and left the country.
যে বিপ্লবের মাধ্যমে বাংলাদেশ আজকে নতুন বিজয় দিবস সৃষ্টি করলো, এই দেশকে নতুনভাবে পুনর্জন্ম দিয়েছে এবং এই পুনর্জন্মে যে বাংলাদেশ পেলাম, সেই বাংলাদেশ যেন অত্যন্ত দ্রুত গতিতে এগিয়ে চলতে পারে, সেটাই হলো আমাদের শপথ।
In her place, a new interim government was formed, led by Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus.
প্রধান উপদেষ্টা পদে কর্তব্য বিশ্বস্ততার সহিত পালন করিব।
This is Ganabhavan, once official residence of the Prime Minister, the seat of power in Dhaka, one of the most densely populated cities on earth. Now, it is a museum, a stark reminder of the authoritarian years and the people's victory. It started with demands for quota reform in civil service recruitment, but by mid-July 2024, peaceful protests were met with brutal crackdowns. At a press conference on July 14, Sheikh Hasina made a derogatory remark about the protesting students, triggering mass student demonstrations.
তার মানে কি মুক্তিযোদ্ধা সন্তান নাতিপুতিরা কেউ মেধাবী না, যত রাজাকারের বাচ্চারা নাতিপুতি হলো মেধাবী, তাই না?
She referred to the students as Rajakars, a politically sensitive term in Bangladesh's political context.
প্রধানমন্ত্রী যখন শিক্ষার্থীদের রাজাকার বলে এবং রাজাকার বলে যদি এই আন্দোলনকে দমন করার চেষ্টা করা, এইটা কিন্তু শিক্ষার্থীরা গ্রহণ করবে না।
Rajakars were the collaborators of Pakistani army in 1971 during Bangladesh's war of independence against Pakistan, where they committed widespread crimes against humanity. On 16 July 2024, while participating in the anti-discrimination movement, Abu Saeed was shot dead by police at Begum Rokeya University. Saeed was the first martyr, which ignited widespread protests.
আমার ছেলের দোষ আসলো না, আমার ছেলে এটাই ওরা সমস্যা করবে, দূর করবে যায়, আমার ছেলে গুলি করে মারছে পাখির মতন।
After the killing of Abu Saeed, the violence escalated. Several hundred students were killed by police in what became known as the July Massacre. At that time, Awami League leaders openly directed their party members to attack students.
যে সব বক্তব্য রেখেছে তার জবাব দেওয়ার জন্য ছাত্রলীগ সহ যারা তাদের এ আত্মস্বীকৃত মানে রাজাকার, যারা নিজেদের অদ্যত্বপূর্ণ মানসিকতা প্রকাশ ঘটিয়েছে গত রাতে, তার জবাব তারাই দেবে।
Thugs allied with the ruling party, alongside police forces, attacked students relentlessly. From July 16 to 22, over 250 people were killed. Wasim Akram was studying at a college in Chittagong, the port city of Bangladesh. Like many other students, he never thought of backing down from the protest.
যখন বাংলাদেশের সকল ছাত্ররা আন্দোলনে নামছে তখন আমার ভাইয়াও দেশকে স্বৈরাচার মুক্ত করার জন্য আন্দোলনে নেমেছিল। আমার ভাইয়ের দোষ ছিল না। অনেকে আমার মতো ভাই হারাইছে, অনেকে ছেলে হারাইছে, অনেক মায়ের বুক খালি হয়েছে। শেখ হাসিনা পুলিশকে নির্দেশ দিয়েছিল গুলি করার জন্য।
ওই দিন থেকে আন্দোলনটা আর কোটা সংস্কারের ছিল না। 16 তারিখের পরে আন্দোলনটা আসলে বিচারের জায়গায় চলে গেছে, কারণ এখানে একটা হত্যাকাণ্ড হয়েছে।
On July 19, 44 people were killed in a single day. Capital city Dhaka had turned into a valley of death. Hospitals echoed with the cries of injured students desperate for treatment. But under pressure from Sheikh Hasina's government, many were denied medical care. In some cases, even wounded students were arrested from the hospital beds.
আমি আহত হয়েছিলাম 18ই জুলাই, সায়েন্স ল্যাবে আহত হয়েছিলাম। বন্দুকের যে বাঁট ছিল ওইটা দিয়ে পিঠায় একদম পিঠে যেটা আছে ওখানে থেতলায় দিছিল। পঙ্গু হাসপাতালে আমাকে টোটাল শরীরের পোশাক খুলে আমাকে উলঙ্গ করে 24 ঘন্টা ওখানে রাখা হয়। তারপর তারা আমাকে ওখান থেকে একটা জায়গাতে শিফট করার পর আমাকে কোনো ট্রিটমেন্ট দেয়নি। আমার ব্যথার যে ইনজেকশনটা সেটাও দেয়নি, সেটা আমাকে ওই বাহির থেকে কিনে নিয়ে এসে অন্য একজনের গোপনে আমাকে নিতে হতো।
In response, the government imposed a curfew. Helicopters were used to fire on protesters. The internet was shut down. Mass arrests followed. Over 9,000 detained.
When everything is in your control, then if within that any group of people start protesting, you will think that I can shoot at them with impunity and nothing will happen to me, because it's never happened before. They did it in 2013, they did it in 2018, they did it in 2024, early 2024. They'd done it and nothing happened. Nobody really did anything and they thought they could just keep getting away with it.
The Secretary General is concerned about reported mass arrests of thousands of young people and political opposition in connection with the current student movement.
By early August, the situation had reached a point of no return. Protesters launched the March for Justice, demanding the release of detained leaders.
সেই সরকার এবং সরকারের দায়িত্বশীল পুলিশ অফিসিয়াল এবং যারা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের পর্যায়ে যারা কর্মকর্তা ছিলেন তাদেরকে বিচারের মুখোমুখি করা এবং তাদের কাছে এবং এই যে হত্যাকাণ্ডের ন্যায় বিচারটার জন্য মূলত এই মার্চ ফর জাস্টিস কর্মসূচিটা আসে।
আমরা এক দফার সিদ্ধান্তে উপনীত হয়েছি, এই সরকার কোনোভাবে আর 1 মিনিট ক্ষমতায় থাকার
August 4 was the deadliest day, with 91 people killed. In addition to Dhaka, many students were killed in several other districts. In Bangladesh's Feni district, a heart-rending scene unfolded as students were gunned down on the streets.
আমরা দেখেছি যে সেদিন কি বিভৎস চিত্র ফেনীতে ছিল। নিরস্ত্র যেসব ছাত্ররা শিক্ষার্থীরা মহিফালের যে ফ্লাইওভার রয়েছে সেই ফ্লাইওভারের নিচে কিন্তু তারা আন্দোলন করছিল। তাদের আন্দোলনে জোহরের নামাজের পরে হঠাৎ করে অতর্কিত হামলা করে সন্ত্রাসীরা। এরপরেই কিন্তু এক একজন করে যে লাশ তারা লাশ করতে থাকে।
Bangladesh had never witnessed such a massive participation of women in any previous movement. Thousands of girls, along with their mothers, took to the streets, all asking the same question: why were our brothers killed?
The July protest wasn't the first time we saw brutality from them. There were other scenarios where you could hear that somebody tried to speak up against them or speak up against something that they had done, and they ended up being killed or they're missing. So I thought that it was the right thing to do to speak up for it, because it just wasn't right that the government would kill them just because they spoke up for their own right.
Mothers watched with pride as the children rose against a brutal regime, marching for justice. Bullets flew, crackdowns followed, but nothing could silence their courage or break their resolve. Because they saw their sons, brothers, and classmates gunned down for demanding fairness.
Our children should have that courage to raise their voice. Any of us should talk about our rights.
I saw so many boys and girls also. They got shot by the rubber bullets. A tear shell come into the head. I go and cut their skins to pull out the rubber bullets. They're totally injured with the bullets, totally injured. And some of them was injured with the real bullet also.
The Sheikh Hasina regime employed all forms of repression to suppress the protests. Sheikh Hasina directed the security forces to kill students. A deadly crackdown on students was authorized by Sheikh Hasina, according to audio of one of her phone calls verified by BBCI. On August 5, despite a curfew, hundreds of thousands defied army checkpoints and flooded into Dhaka. On August 5, from the morning, news was spreading that Army Chief General Waqaruzzman would address the nation on television. The Army Chief later appeared on air and announced that Sheikh Hasina had resigned. The regime had collapsed. Celebrations erupted. It was a moment of boundless joy. People took over Ganobhabon, symbolically marking the end of the Hasina era. How did a student protest over civil service quotas bring down an entire government?
They deliberately instructed the Chhatra League to beat up the students. They instructed the police to shoot. What they didn't expect was the effect this would have on the population. That instead of everybody getting scared and going home, they started coming out more and more and more. And the more people they shot, more people came out. This, I think, they did not expect. They expected that their previous strategy would work. You would show brutal force, you would pick up people, and people would get scared and they would go home. What cracked this time was people understood that if a government which is not elected is going to shoot dead unarmed citizens to protect its money and its power, this is unacceptable.
After taking power in 2008, Sheikh Hasina amended the constitution, abolishing the non-partisan caretaker system for overseeing elections. The caretaker system, which had been in place to ensure fair general elections, was widely popular. Following its removal, 3 consecutive general elections were marred by manipulation. Voters were blocked and ballots were stuffed.
That election were not participatory, not credible, not legitimate,
And per international standard, I cannot term these are elections. All these elections, the role of the Election Commission was just to provide logistical support. Ultimately, in the driving seat, various state agencies played the key role.
During Sheikh Hasina's rule, corruption deeply angered ordinary people. Sheikh Hasina herself proudly admitted that
আমার বাসায় কাজ করে গেছে পিয়ন, সে এখন 400 কোটি টাকার মালিক। হেলিকপ্টার ছাড়া চলে না।
billions were looted under the guise of development. During Sheikh Hasina's rule, financial corruption with ties to political networks became normalized in the country. Billions of dollars earned through corruption by members of Sheikh Hasina's party were funneled into the real estate markets of developed countries. The UK's National Crime Agency froze nearly £90 million worth of luxury London property linked to 2 individuals associated with Hasina.
It was never taken into consideration by the ruling authority. In fact, those who reported against corruption are considered to be political enemies. They were considered to be traitors and also subject to various kinds of revenge for reporting on corruption.
Meanwhile, party members also took out substantial bank loans, many of which were never repaid. Human rights were widely abused during Sheikh Hasina's rule. Despite strong international outcry, she paid no attention. Her police chief, Benazir Ahmed, faced US sanctions for human rights abuses, yet was allowed to flee the country. Secret detention centers became tools of fear. Dissidents disappeared. Some never returned.
I was abducted for about 16 months, and I was abducted by the Director General of Forces Intelligence, DGFI's armed thugs. Yeah, you see? I don't have teeth out here. Because I was punched so badly. When I asked for treatment, they said that you better die here. They made up a small story. The story was, we release you on one condition. I said, what condition? That if you ever utter one word about who we are or where you have been, my younger daughter was that time in Bangladesh, we'll kill her.
After the fall, Professor Yunus visited these sites of abuse. His government formed a commission on enforced disappearances.
We are also able to trace some of the people, although it is extremely hard, some of the people who remain missing, and in very minority of cases we're able to understand what happened to them in their period of captivity. In all cases there is brutalization to an extent we cannot even imagine. People's private parts would be targeted specifically for electrocution. A very disgusting form of torture is that you would be forced to drink a lot of water. Then as you urinated, your private part would be electrocuted. This is, again, the level of depravity in thinking makes no sense, especially when you understand it is being unleashed against people who Awami League considered its opponents.
The surprising was the result of 16 years of suppressed anger. Under Sheikh Hasina's misrule, an uprising had become inevitable. Political parties like the BNP and Jamaat Islami became victims of Sheikh Hasina's rule.
People were living practically in fear because of the state's terrorism, So this pent-up frustration and anger was growing over the years, And that did the trick finally, but it was coming in any case because, as I said, it has reached the tipping point. And I've been saying all the time, she would have to come down with her own weight at some point, So that has happened, basically.
None of us, I think, could fix up the date that July and August would be the last tenure. But as a politician, we are foreseeing that this government have to resign, have to leave. But when, either very early or sooner, that was the different. So we are very much optimistic and clear of the idea that Hasina tyranny could not continue for a long time.
When major political parties joined forces with the students, the uprising gained momentum and ultimately became successful. No section of society remained untouched. People from all walks of life took part in the movement. United, they placed their faith in the students' call for change. There was a shared determination. Sheikh Hasina's rule had to end.
We have chosen some people from leftist group, some people from rightist or Islamist group, some people from Chhatra Dal, just to connect with those student groups, student parties. So there were 3 or 4 student Chhatra Dal leaders in our coordinators team. There were 2 or 3 student leaders from Chhatra Shibir. There were 2 or 3 students from rebellious Chhatra League who rebelled against the Chhatra League, and they came with us. So that was the dimension, that it was students' dimension. And then after, I think during the curfew, it became popular, it became people surprising. Senior leaders were not in anyhow connected till, I think, till end of the July or during that 3rd or 4th or 5th August.
In July 2024, the people of Bangladesh said, enough.
The rule of fear finally stopped working. It had worked for 15 years.
That level of sheer bravery exists in our society, and I think Awami League miscalculated that fully.
Over 1,400 lives were lost, but the country was reborn.
Better Bangladesh and not discrimination-free Bangladesh, democratic Bangladesh. There are many things to be considered, and we are going to achieve something in this time, but we have to achieve many things in future.
A new chapter begins. One written not by fear, but by hope.
কত তরুণ অরুণ গেছে রাস্তা চলে মুক্তির মন্দির সোপান তলে কত প্রাণ হলো বলিদান লেখা আছে অশ্রু